All right, it says we're live. So we're live again. All right, everyone, welcome this week. This week is an exciting week. It's our 6th show here at the Author's Dilemma. Tonight we are going to talk to you about a lot of things. So first, my name is J.E. Jack, and I write urban fantasy and paranormal thrillers.
And I'm Hyrum Hawks, and I write hard sci-fi and sci-fantasy. And I'm sorry that I'm not at my normal desk. I'm at a conference. We'll talk about
Nice. I'm Jennifer Carr, and I write Christian romantic suspense as well as clean contemporary romance.
All right. So this week is, like I said, an exciting week. It was Valentine's. And so did anybody do anything interesting for Valentine's?
No.
No.
Oh, well, my wife got me those tart, those heart shape, those hearts, candy.
Conversation hearts.
Conversation hearts. Yes,
The
yes.
Tums.
Yeah, everybody hates them. I love them.
I love them. I think they're great.
And
Taste horrible.
Yeah, but she got me the Friends version of those things, and
Like the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show Friends, and things like Pivot is on there.
I love it. I was thinking let's just be friends, and I was
exactly. That's what I was worried about.
Oh no. So I got that,
so
and so that was an exciting Valentine's.
That's awesome. I love it. I did. So we have church on Wednesday nights. And so I took Valentine's to my kiddos in the class that I teach. And we had a good time and had a Valentine's party. But that was it. And so they brought me Sour Patch Kids and Fun Dip. Neither of which I eat, but it was so sweet. I was like, thank you.
Oh my gosh, I feel like an idiot. That's why there were heart-shaped cookies at the church activity on Wednesday.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day, everyone.
Oops.
All right. So real quick, this now's the time where we dance. No. Now's the time where we talk about our business. Hyrum, let's go with you.
Well, I'm at LTUE, Life, the Universe, and Everything. It's a writing convention focused on sci-fi and fantasy. It's the 42nd year, which, if you know Life, the Universe, and Everything, that is a very significant milestone.
That's right.
The committee is wearing towels, so it's quite amusing. And if you don't know what that means, read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy immediately. But yeah, my book was released yesterday, and I actually have physical copies, and so it's very exciting. And I am in the entryway because it's the quietest place at the convention, and that is not outside.
Yes.
Nice. That's awesome.
All right, Jennifer.
Exciting. Well, I made it a little farther into my manuscript that I'm working on, and had a conversation with my editor, who I told her it was the most boring book I've ever written. She's like, "Are you just being a tortured artist, or is it really boring?" And I was like, "Probably a little bit of both." But that's what edits are for. So my goal is to finish by next week, and then start slashing the crap out of it.
I have something to tell you that I learned. I think it was Terry Pratchett. Every book, he would tell his editor, "This is the worst thing ever. I need to just give up. I'm a terrible writer." Every one of his books at some point, and his editor would be like, "You say this every time."
Well, I think the problem is when you write a book, you read it so many times that you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible."
Now it might have been Neil Gaiman. The two get.
I think it was Terry Pratchett, but
okay.
But I could be wrong.
They're the same person in my mind.
It's not bad. It's just boring. That was all I said. I was boring.
Well, we'll talk about that, because once you get to your edits, that's the milestone that we'll talk about tonight. Anyway, so my business update is, the adage is true. People overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. And so I'm still or in a week or whatever, I'm still at stage where I'm working on my newsletter still. And I have Bluehost. That was my website, or the hosting site that's my website's on. And dealing with that, there's just so many technical stuff that I'm trying to learn and trying to do, trying to spin plates and do all these different things. So Jen told me about Weebly. So I'm trying that out, and that's backed by Square. So hopefully I'll have the ability to start selling books, directly. So I'm looking into that, which, like I said, it's, I have to recreate the website plus the newsletter. So there's a lot of moving parts. I'm moving forward, but it's annoying because I'm not writing I have a very limited time, so I can only focus on one thing, because my day job takes a lot of my time. But slowly getting there. And, so that's that.
Well, hey, let me throw this out there. I know this is really not what we're talking about, but I just discovered do you use Ingram Spark for yours?
Yes.
Publish? So they have a new thing, and it's in beta phase. So I don't know if everybody has it yet, but it's their e-commerce links.
Oh, right,
You can
right.
sell directly from Ingram Spark in the meantime, and actually, you make more commission off of
Really?
like your royalties are way higher selling than even from Amazon.
See, like you get emails and you get different blurbs and you hear different things, but that's the first time. I mean, I wasn't aware of it. I heard of it, but I was kind of like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to affect them like bookstores buying from them, because that's usually where bookstores, libraries, things of that nature buy from. So
I know.
Boy, that's a conversation. That's
That's
probably another
research.
podcast.
Yeah. I have to do some research and experience. Nobody's bought from my links yet, but I have them set up. And so even in addition to my website, just because sometimes people want it from elsewhere, and that's fine too. I don't mind if I make more from it.
Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, we'll have to research that and talk about that probably next week sometime. All right. So, all right, everyone. Tonight we are talking about author milestones or mile markers on this highway of our business, right? So, we start off as a hobby and we turn it into a business, and these are things that we're going to experience along this journey up this mountain. Man, we all have stories. We all have firsts in our lives, like, oh, this is exciting. And then, going up that mountain, there's going to be steep cliffs and drop offs, and we're going to hit the valley and we're going to keep going up. And so, and we have this list here that we're kind of going off of, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what are your guys' thoughts on the mile markers?
I think that some of them could be summed up as my first existential crisis.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's true. It's true.
I had one just the other day that Jen talked me off of.
Oh, which, by the way, if you're watching this evening, be sure to use the comments. If you have any questions, pop it in there and we will try to answer as best we can. And if you're listening to this in the future, and if you have any questions, if you're listening to this on podcast, be sure to send us an email at authorsdilemma@gmail.com. Thank you, Jen.
So that was a milestone for me just the other day with Jen, because I was basically, I'd spent $5 on Facebook ads, and I thought, wow, I got 100 clicks on my website, and I got no sales, nothing. And I thought, and so I had a bit of an existential crisis. Like, if 100 people click on my website and none of them buy a book, what's the point?
Well, the problem is, that is probably either your targeting is wrong, or something with your blurbs, or something's not interesting. Maybe it could be the cover. It could be a lot of different things. I'm having an issue with Facebook as well with my ad account. Due to some issues in the past, my ad account is still restricted. I'm still dealing with Facebook myself. We're kind of getting off topic here, but that's probably another conversation we can have about technical difficulties and different issues or things that we could troubleshoot on.
But that is one of those milestones for every author. Is there, you're going to come to a point where you're going to tell yourself, what is the point?
Yeah.
No one's buying my book.
Yeah.
What am I even doing this for?
Right. So and yes, that is a mile marker. But for those starting out, let's start off at the beginning, right?
I would say that is kind of a mile marker that you hit a lot. I hit it near the beginning, but then that's when the first mile marker that saved me on that is my first alpha read. I wrote something, and then someone liked it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you wrote this, realizing you have stories to tell. And, for a lot of people, they think that, oh, this is too much, or I can't do this, but you can surprise yourself. And something I tell people, when they're starting off is start off small, start off with writing a scene, start off with writing a vignette, a short story, and then each project you write, it gets a little more, until eventually you have a novella, a novelette, novel, epic, and then you move on to you have any thoughts on that, Jen?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was kind of I was just thinking about my first experience, like sitting down to write, and then like I started writing. I got to what was probably equivalent to chapter 4, and was like, I think I'm gonna write a book. Like you don't know, like it just happens, and you're like, oh look, I wrote a book.
No, that's true. I mean, that's true because I wrote a short story that was like 15,000 words, and then when when I was working on Them Bones, it was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna see how far this goes, and it just kept on going and going, and I'm like, oh, I hit 45, and then progressively each work after that's gotten a little bit more because I think with each work you proved yourself that you can do that, and so therefore you have a lot more experience going to the next one. The next biggest thing is sharing it with someone else.
Your family, your alpha reader, your wife, your anybody, like the guy sitting next to you on the bus during your commute. It's their reaction that can make or break you. And so it's very important to choose the right person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because if I shared it with, a 12-year-old boy, he might be like, that was boring. It was to him. But what are you writing? Who you should share it with someone who will appreciate what it is, and someone who, honestly, don't share it with a negative person. Share it with a positive person.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, your environment really does have a lot of impact of just your mental health as well. If you have a negative family, you know what you shouldn't do? You probably shouldn't share it with them.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my god.
or negative friends or whatever.
I'm grateful for my 81-year-old mother-in-law because she is a writer and she's a kind person. And she read my first story, which now that I'm a little further, I realize is really bad.
Oh my gosh.
But she read it and she's like, this is really promising. She used all the best words. Promising. A lot of potential. This made me, but she then pointed out the stuff that was really good. Like there were parts of it that were not just promising, they were good.
Yeah.
And so finding someone that can give you that feedback is critical.
Do you know what's funny though? Like I grew up always excelling at writing in school and even giving speeches, which is literally, you write the speech and then you give the speech, and I won awards off that kind of thing. So sharing my writing was never a big deal until it was, when it became something that was mine and personal, right? Like it wasn't me expressing an opinion. It wasn't me, talking about a topic. It was me pouring something into a story, which it doesn't make sense really if you're not a writer, I don't think, but those stories are so personal, even if it's fiction, that sharing it with somebody is kind of like bearing your soul to them. And so it took me until I was around that chapter 4 mark where I actually told my husband, hey, I think I'm going to write a book. And then it wasn't until I was halfway through it that I was like, do you want to read this to even tell me if I'm wasting my time? And even then I was like, just don't tell me what you think about it. I didn't want to hear his opinion on it. And I know it's not because he loves me and he would tell me I did a good job and he would be honest, but I don't want him to judge me based on what I put on the page. I don't know. So anyway, but it does. You have to make sure that you are sharing it with somebody who loves you and your work.
Now, when you're writing, do you guys, and I think we probably covered this in a previous podcast, but I've turned into my father where I forget, some of the stories I tell. I mean, I'll probably tell the same story next week. But jokes aside, when you write, do you have readers that read like what you're currently writing as you're writing, or do you wait until it's done? Where are you at on that?
I did at the beginning when I didn't know what I was doing. And as I've progressed, I now write longer and longer sections without people reading. Now I have, I have an alpha reader team. That's my writers group. Then I try to get beta readers, and the beta readers are important. But that's the thing, is you got to remember that you are you become part of a larger group as you progress. So at the beginning, you are very alone, and reaching out for help right at the very beginning is really helpful. But as you go further, you're going to kind of stretch your wings, and you'll find, take more time. Like I don't share less than 5,000 words unless I read a really funny scene and then I have to read it to my
right. Jen, what about you?
I have one, well, technically two. My editor is also my sister. And so she has access to the story at any given time. And so though for this book that I'm currently writing, she has not started it. And I get it. You know, right now she's in the spring semester of school and that kind of thing with her, you know, with her job. And so I get her timing, but I have one other person who has constant access too. And so as soon as I add something, she reads it if she wants to or has time to do it. She's also a stay-at-home mom. So, you know, time is of the essence for her. So I have those people. They don't always read
right
when I would want them to, but I also,
right.
you know,
yeah
that's kind of where I am.
Well, I'm the same way. I have a handful of people that every 5,000 words I'll send them what I got, and the reason why I do that is because I want to know if the story is still going well. Like, is it still interesting? Are they, you know, and what I'm always looking for is, hey, this didn't work for me, so that way I can keep a mind of it, because I don't want to get too far ahead in my story and then have a plot hole that I didn't think about, you know. So I have those people. You know, one of them is my brother, and you know, we and him have a really good relationship, and he's pretty honest with me, and so you know, we'll talk about it. I'm like, oh, and then that gives me more ideas on how to finish it, and that I think that's even for me as a pantser, I need that feedback to know that I'm still going the right direction. And then sometimes he's like, hey, this is not working, and I'm like, you know what? Well, let me work on that. So that's the mile marker, right? You know, sharing it initially with those people and finding those people to begin with. I mean, and for those that don't have that, well, you know, they have those resources online. I mean, you can find them on Facebook. You know, you can, there's a website out there called meetup.com. And sometimes you can find different groups in your area, look up writing groups, look up different whatever. And, you know, sometimes you can find people through that.
There are state writing groups too in many states. Like Utah has the League of Utah Writers, and you can meet other authors through it. If you're not as tech savvy, that you just find them through TikTok.
Right. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
There's also a website called Scribophile, and what you do is you can submit your work, and you comment on other people's work, and they comment on your work, but you have to work with other people in order for them to work with your stuff. So it's like a give and take kind of situation.
Oh my gosh, that scares me. Like, just thinking about that, just giving it just to people I have no idea. So
I would rather give it to a stranger and be like,
oh, no.
you know, yes,
I have to trust. I need to know their credentials.
If they're they're all writers at that point. Everybody's a writer.
Yeah, but are they a writer in my genre, or at least in a genre that has some relation? I don't.
Well, on Scribophile, yes, on that one, yeah.
All right, so we've kind of established, you know, getting someone to read. That's your first big milestone, right? I mean, your first, like, you're sharing it with the world. You know, the next is you know, the editing process and getting feedback that you might not want to hear.
And not wanting to hear, that is a huge part, because you've got to face that's, again, it comes back to existential crisis a lot, right? I think I've had them at least once every few months. Is that you find out that you are good, but not that good. Because you need to learn something. Because nobody is a perfect writer.
Right.
I mean, some people are like, oh, that author never even makes revisions. They're lying. They make revisions.
Right.
I mean, people make mistakes. And honestly, like, my biggest fault is white room syndrome. I assume people can read my mind and that they see the same thing in their head. I have to learn that. That was a big day for me, is realizing other people really do see pictures in their head, and that other people do want to read descriptions that I skip.
Well, and that's another thing. Like, you know, when you do get feedback from your editor, wow, I don't know about y'all, but I'm at a point, like, when I'm finished with that book or with a rough draft, I am so I'm not there anymore. It's like, and I mean, because A, I want my, you know, I'm already ready for the next story. And then B, I just want to be done with it. Yep. I don't want to think about it. I don't want it, but you have to. That's why you really have to enjoy what you're doing as a writer, because you're going to be reading this thing 100 times. And I'm not kidding.
Only 100?
Yeah, exactly. That's on the low end. Which, by the way, let me go ahead and say this. If you have any questions, be sure to ask, because we are in the mood to answer questions. Oh, and if you're watching this from somewhere, be sure to tell us where you're watching from, because we'd like to see where our viewers are watching from.
And if you've invented time travel so that you can comment on it after listening to it in the
well,
future, please tell us, because that's much more important.
Oh, well, that's that. Well, you bring up an important point. If you are listening to this on Spotify or some podcast platform, be sure to leave us a review. Let us know, let us know how we're doing, because that's how we're getting feedback.
Unless you don't like us, because it'll hurt our feelings.
Okay,
that's another milestone.
All right. So, well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? So after editing, we go through the publishing process, and that's probably a conversation coming up that we'll have on another podcast. The Amazon versus Scrivener versus all these different options that you have, and then boy, that's a can of worms.
Kate, can we go back to the editing real quick? Because
sure.
I really jump in there. So when it comes to editing, you have to make sure that one, get an editor. I don't care if you use like a cardboard box as your book cover, pay for an editor. Like, you have to have an editor, and they have to be a good editor.
I will have to piggyback on that. Not only the editor, but also your book cover.
Yes, but here's the thing.
No.
Listen, let me talk, Josh. You've been talking. Shut your mouth. So like, your editor can make or break your book, right? Like,
right.
It may be the prettiest book cover you've ever seen. If somebody opens that page, they're like, this is crap, and they're going to toss it. Or if you're real lucky, they're going to make they're going to make a return to Amazon, and then you're going to lose that sale.
No. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
I think
what's on the inside counts way more than what's on the outside in a lot of ways. Now, yes, you do need a good book cover, because you have to get their attention. But what I want to tell you is that make sure you invest in a good editor. And if they are a good editor, they will make you a better writer if you take their suggestions and their advice. So don't be afraid to let somebody get a hold of your work if they're qualified and make changes.
Right.
And you also want to make sure that editor is not going to steal your voice, that it's still your work. They're just making it better. So anyway, that's my soapbox about editing. There you go.
No. And I totally agree. And, in the pyramid, in the grand scheme of things, editing is the top. You have to have someone look at that stuff.
And it can cost you a pretty penny. So like, if you want a good editor, because even cheap editors could range, $2,000-$3,000
right
for a book, depending on how long your book is.
My editor for my most recent book is a college student. Happened to be the sister of my book cover designer, and yes, she still was $1,500. She did great, but it's a good editor. I think 3,000 is the low end.
Yeah, it is. I'm very fortunate, because my wife, she edits my books, and she does a fantastic job. Not only does she do developmental stuff, but she also does line by line proofreading stuff like. So I'm just really blessed on that. But yeah, so
I was going to make a crude comment and decided to keep it to myself. Just understand that I had a funny thought.
We all know what thought.
Yes, paying your editor.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, but yeah, no, editing is top, followed by book cover, and then and that's another thing. That's another mile marker is getting your first book cover.
Yeah.
It's like going through that process of dealing with an artist like, no, I don't like this, or I do like this. And that's one nice thing about being an indie author is you have full control over that versus, going traditional. You don't always have control over what you get back.
Yeah.
What else? The next one is, oh gosh, a typo after the final draft. There's nothing worse than releasing the book, and then you get your author's copy, or you get a copy that you bought just to see what it's all about, and then you find because no matter how many times, right, no matter how good your editor is, there's always going to be a typo.
Oh yeah,
doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So my book released on the 1st. That was a Thursday. I had my copy in hand, or my ebook in hand is what I was reading, and 2. By Saturday, I found 2. And then by Sunday, I had found 4. And I was like, what the heck? Because it had not only been through editing twice, it had been through beta reads, it had been through ARC reads. I had read it. And so you just have to understand that it's okay. It happens. It happens. It happens.
Right. And you're not alone, and the world doesn't come to an end
That's right.
because of it.
You can upload that file again to wherever you published it, and you can let it get fixed.
But the ones you already bought are too late.
That is true.
And you have to accept that. And that's an emotional thing when you know
It
that
is.
you're hand selling a book and you're like,
Yes.
I'm sorry, this has some typos.
It's not
But
perfect.
they're
Yeah.
really not that big of a deal.
And they
Right.
may not even see it, right? It's
Nope.
you know they're there.
Well, considering how many people have read it and not seen it, the fact you
Right?
saw it is still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, not only just typos, but then formatting issues that you didn't see.
Mhm.
Boy, I've had that before. Like,
Mhm.
paragraph is, double with a triple space, which doesn't take away from the story, but you want to give the best thing you can out to people. And when you see that
Yeah.
after the fact, you're like, well, I better upload new files to fix
It is not just us indie authors that have that kind of
Right.
stuff happen too.
Oh, right.
Mary Robinette Kowal tells a story about one of her first books that Trad published. They left off the first line,
Oh my God.
the entire first sentence, which was kind of critical to the story.
would-
They just left it off.
Yeah,
I would die.
that's not good.
Mm-mm.
So let's talk about, in the list that we have, post-release depression.
It's
Yeah, I've had a bit of that.
So I think it's just that's not just book related. That's everything related. I think every time you accomplish a goal that you put time and effort into, there's going to be that initial, oh wow, that's amazing, and then followed by, well, now what? I mean, like you go to school, you go to get your degree, or you finish your book, or you do something. Like I said, I think that's always there with whatever goal you have.
I don't know that I face that as much. I'll be honest, only because even when I was in the midst of publishing book 1, I was already writing book 2. And while that one was in edits, I started writing book 3. And while that one was being published, I started on 4. And so like my brain had now, there may come a point where I'm without a story and I'm like, well, what the heck am I going to do? If that day comes, then I will know to look out for it. And that's why we're even talking about this stuff, is to say, hey, this is a possibility. This could happen.
Right. And I think
it's happened a lot. It's happened a lot to me. Like I have 3 master's degrees, and none of them gave me that thrill that, like, wow, I accomplished something, because they were just an end.
Yeah.
So I think finding joy in the journey, I mean, that's kind of cliche, but it's absolutely critical, because the finishing the project is not where the joy came in. Like writing this book was not where I had, publishing this book does not give me joy. Writing it and doing it was where the joy was. Publishing it is more of just like an end cap.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I've accomplished a lot of hard schools in my life, different, military, law enforcement, things of that nature. And you're right. At the end of it, it's like, you're excited, but at the same time, it's like, okay, moving on.
And
What's
that's
next?
another reason not to hurry. It's not. Life is not a short sprint. Life is a marathon that you will die in. And so you might as well enjoy it along the way.
But I think when it comes to writing, I think the biggest depression is for me when I, since I'm not writing in a series, is what am I going to write next?
Oh yeah.
That's where I don't know if that's really depression. That's more of like, oh God, I got to find something to write now.
Yeah.
Because I got to write. It's now I have that habit of like, I know I can do this. I enjoy certain parts of doing this. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if I enjoy that. I mean, there's something about it that keeps bringing me back, and I feel like I feel compelled, right? It's like I have an addiction, like, it's a low grade addiction that I got to keep coming back to the stupid chair, and I got to write these stupid words, and I don't even enjoy it half the time, but there's something about it I do, obviously, because I'm still here doing it.
Obviously. And this, folks, is the author's dilemma.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, and I think also you have to understand that it doesn't stop when you click publish or upload. Like you have to find, and I know that some of us don't love the part that comes after publishing, that there's a whole lot of work and grit that goes into it, and it can seem mundane, it can seem stressful, it can seem pointless when you don't see that immediate traction. I think changing your mindset and realizing your expectations might be just a smidge high not looking at anybody specific.
She's looking at me.
I was looking at him. But we've had this conversation that, you have to set those realistic expectations for yourself and know that even after you've published the book, you're not done with that book. That book is always going to be part of your process. You just have to keep it in line and not forget that.
Well, I think another thing that we need to bring up is the difference between a hobby versus a business, right? Like,
and we could do a whole hour on that.
Oh, no, that's true too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem a lot of indie authors have, is making that transition to making it into a business of, like, because business has not scheduled, but they have like
there's a structure.
Structures in place. They have, automatic systems in place. Like,
yep.
when this happens, I do this, or when this happens, this does this. And being a new author, a new business owner, a new this thing, is developing those things that work for us, or, because it is such a unique to who we are. So I think the next biggest milestone after it's out is your first review from someone you don't know, good or bad. Thankfully, I don't know about y'all, but man, I'm so grateful. My first reviews were pretty good, and I'm so grateful, because honestly, if I had my, I shared with y'all last week my first 1-star, and it was basically just, it was horrible. It was like, this book is about teenagers, and I can't believe it's getting so many 5-star reviews, and what's god awful, blah blah blah. And honestly, had that been my first review, I probably would never. I wouldn't be here tonight,
right?
I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm grateful for my 5-star reviews. I'm also grateful for my first 3-star review, because it's a review. I'm just grateful for the volume, the fact that somebody read it through, who it wasn't their cup of tea, and what they said included some things I'm like, this wasn't what they were interested in, but they were kind enough to say, but if you don't care about this, this, and this, you'll love this book.
Yeah, like,
that's a great review.
You can't ask for anything better than that.
That's good.
I just can't stand the ones that obviously didn't read the back of the book or the description even. It's like, it says in the description what the book's about. I don't know why.
There's nothing in this that's spicy. If you don't read any of my books, if you want spice. Because your review will be like, there was no spice. I'm so disappointed. No, there's no spice.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, I know some people have different varying views on this. I know Hyrum doesn't, and he brings up a good point, because on Writing Excuses, it talks about this, negative reviews. I read all my reviews, good and bad, because I like to be, because I like to know what, I just like to keep a finger on the pulse and see where, because if I keep on getting the same review saying, hey, this is an issue, well, I need to look at it and fix that issue.
Yeah.
But Jen, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I haven't dealt with the 1-star review. I have dealt with, somebody left it was a 3-star review, which I'm grateful for, it's not terrible, but she didn't read the book. Like, what she put in the review, I was like, that is not what my book was about. And so she had put it, and I was like, I'm not really sure. Maybe she just put it in the wrong place. So I always open Goodreads or Amazon with the dread in my stomach that this will be the day. Right. And so I've had to stop, like, looking every single day, just because, and it's not because I want to see the reviews, but at the same time, I'm like, let's see how many people are reading the book, more than anything. And so it's a risk.
I like to read 5-star reviews, because they're the people that are like, this touched their soul.
Yeah.
And I will let my wife read everything, because then she can tell me if there's a theme. That's what Writing Excuses talked about. Let somebody else who's not emotionally invested and be like, dude, everyone is complaining because you use like this grammar so badly that they're all just crying when they read the book. That's the kind of thing that the reviews can't. You might see a theme running through it. That's a little silly to say that, but it could be something as simple as your female characters all are monochrome. Your male characters all are chads that really are getting monotonous. That's the kind of thing a review can reveal. But don't do it to yourself, because there's because they'll not be kind about it sometimes. Yeah. And that won't be good for your soul.
That's true.
Something else I think we all do, especially when we initially put out a book, is we're constantly checking our statistics. Like, did I sell any books today? Do I got any new reviews? And I think Well, and it's really tough. I mean, especially for, the review part is, especially when you think it's a good book or, it's like, man, the story's great.
Yeah.
And yes, you do have, a lot of 5 stars, but then you get a 3-star and then the thing I can't stand is Amazon and some of these ratings have some weird algorithms. Like you could have 25 stars and then 2 3s and all of a sudden it's like a 4. That's the rating, and so, as a writer, you're like, but I thought it was a good book. And even a 4-star is good, but you get in these mind games with yourself and it's okay. Just keep going. It doesn't matter. Keep writing.
And there's a trick. Another big part of this is understanding the algorithms of how other people think. There are a lot of people on TikTok. I learned this on TikTok, Jen. You probably saw it. People think they think a 4-star is a great book, and they won't give above a 4-star unless it like literally makes them cry.
Yeah.
It literally makes them have emotional breakdown. That's the only way you're getting a 5-star from some bookstagrammers, from some book talkers.
Yep.
So don't expect a 5-star to happen, especially with the people you read online. And so a 4 is actually a 5, and a 3 is actually a 4.
Yep.
And if you can have that mentality, especially if you get reviews from book talkers and bookstagrammers, 5s are off the table. They don't give 5s unless you made them weep.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, I think the biggest thing, especially for anybody that starts any business, writing or whatever, this is what's going to happen. At least this is what happens to me is initially you're going to have a big bump, right? All your friends, all your family, they're going to come over and take a look at what you're doing. And you're going to get a lot of traction at first or a lot of attention, let's say. Even doing this podcast. I mean, eventually, at first it's like everybody, oh, what are you doing over here?
New. Yeah.
It's new. It's novel. It's novel.
It's novel.
and then, once everybody realizes, oh, well, you're a writer now, that excitement kind of goes away, and you're going to have some people that are going to stick around. I mean, I have a couple of people that I know that, that I've known all my life, and they're still interested in what I do, but then that's when the real work begins, is when that initial excitement wears off and you put out book 2, book 3, and then you find your biggest fans are people you don't know. And that's such a weird thing to get across. I mean, when I've gone to book signings back home in Florida, and I've had people show up that I don't even know. And that's like, what do I do with my hands? Hi. It's like,
it legitimizes it though. Like it makes your work feel real.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Or your first email from someone you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big one too. Like, hey, I wanted to drop you a quick line, say, I thought your book was great. Thank you so much. Yeah. I don't know who you are.
Thank you, random citizen.
Yeah. Thank you, random citizen.
I love you. Let's be best friends.
Yes.
And that's one thing that's interesting is some of those early people that believed in you might eventually become alpha or beta readers.
Yes.
That's true too.
They're people you can develop a relationship with, keeping the professional distance, but that's what I know. Brandon Sanderson has some people that are on his alpha and beta team that have been his fans since day one, and they know the Cosmere almost as well as he does.
Yep.
Probably better.
That's still a lot. Yeah, possibly better. They might have the spreadsheet on their own computer.
I mean, no, it's funny because I've had, beta readers come up and they'll, well, did this happen? I'm like, I need to look into that.
Oh, that's what happens with my wife. She'll be like, so what's the backstory of this character? I'm like, they were a throwaway character. I've literally never thought about them.
Yeah.
They were there for comedic timing.
They were a placeholder.
What do you think it was? What do you think their backstory was?
They died.
Oh my gosh.
Not in your books.
Oh. So we're coming up on 39 minutes. Is there anything else that we need that you can think of?
Anything not snarky at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting to the snarky part of the show.
Yeah. And we're not even drinking, which
we could be.
We could be.
I've always wondered what I would be like drunk. I've never drank, and so I've kind of been curious. What would I be like drunk?
Oh,
and I don't want to find out.
Let's not.
No.
Yeah. So
we'll leave that to the characters. I'll let my character.
There you go.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to call it a day.
Yeah.
We love you all.
Yeah.
It's true.
All right. Yep. All right. Well, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. You're spending your time with us this evening, those of you that watched. And if you're listening to this again on your podcast platform, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We hope you got something out of it. If you did, be sure to drop us a line, let us know. And if you like it, be sure to subscribe. And we'll be here next Thursday at the same time. So we'll see you then. Y'all have a good night.
Yay. Yay.